All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our BCBA task list series. Today we're continuing with behavior change procedures and G2, motivating operations and discriminative stimuli. We're going to get a little more technical today with both of these ideas. These are foundational concepts. There are antecedents and our contingencies, and at times can be rather difficult to internalize and understand. As always, we're going to make it as easy and simplified as possible. Be sure to subscribe for all of our videos. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. So to start, when we think about motivating operations, you want to start thinking about consequences because the value of a consequence changes over time. Today, pizza might be very valuable to me. Tomorrow, it might be less valuable. Why would that be? Well, I had pizza today. Maybe I was satiated on pizza. It changes the value of pizza tomorrow. It's the reason we always want to try to vary our reinforcement and have a bunch of different reinforcers available because the value of things change. We learn, we get older, we change as people. That's just the reality. Now, the availability of those consequences doesn't always explain a person's motivation to respond. In other words, if I had pizza available today, I might be willing to respond or work for it. If there was pizza available tomorrow and it was no longer valuable, well, my motivation is going to change. So start to think about in terms of interventions why that matters. If you have a learner and they just got a brand new toy truck, they might be extremely motivated today to work and respond for that toy truck. 6 months down the line, when that truck no longer holds any value, it might have no effect on their behavior. And that is the crux behind MOs and then to further our discriminative stimuli. So the way I explain it, and I think the simplest I can make it, is a motivating operation makes you want or not want to do something due to the altered value of a consequence. So essentially, it makes you want or not want to do something because you either want or not want the consequence. Whereas the SD, the discriminative stimulus, signals it's available. So, in other words, you can really want something and it might not be available, or it could be available and you have no interest in it. Now, looking at our chart, and I think it's a good chart from Cooper with our MOs, you have to think in terms of two effects: value altering, which is going to be our consequences, and behavior altering. And when we talk about behavior altering as far as MOs go, this is temporary. So you can see they say an increase in the current frequency. So behavior altering effects from MOs are not permanent. Value altering effects are not permanent. MOs are not leaving a permanent impact on the consequence or the behavior. It's extremely important to remember and is some of the basis for manipulating motivating operations. So if we're altering the value of a reinforcer, we can either establish it and we're increasing it, or we can abolish it, decreasing it. And then the behavior altering is we can evoke behavior, so an increase in behavior, or abate it, a decrease in frequency. Think about MOs in terms of this little chart. Now, when we talk about value altering, we're talking specifically about the consequence. So in other words, are we increasing or decreasing the power of the stimulus object or event? And typically you're going to do that through satiation or deprivation. If I deprive you of your cell phone for 8 hours, think about how valuable access to that cell phone becomes. If I satiate you on, say, alcohol because we went out last night, think about how much value alcohol loses the next day. The idea behind these value altering and establishing and abolishing effects. Then, when that value starts changing, well, the behavior is going to start changing because the behavior is going to change if the value of the consequence increases, well, you're going to start acting more to get that item. Contrast that with if the value of the item decreases, you're likely not going to be acting in ways that's going to grant access to that item. Again, this is a current change in behavior because this is an antecedent. Consequences are what affect future change. So if the behavior increases, typically it's going to be what we consider evocative. If the behavior decreases, it's typically going to be abative. Now you might say, well, what about consequences? Because we're just talking current here. We're talking antecedents. Consequences have what we call function altering effects. They're permanent altering impacts on our future behavior. If this is already a little confusing, pause it here and just think again in terms of how is my motivating operation altering the value? How is my motivating operation altering the behavior? And the value and the behavior are interlocked. And then once you've got that idea down, let's continue. Now, what is the difference between the SD and the MO? Well, when we have our three-term contingency, SD, response, consequence, the MO is sometimes considered that fourth part of this contingency because the MO is affecting all of these different things, right? MO is affecting behaviors and it's affecting the consequence. So where does the SD come into play? If I have a motivating operation where it increases the value of a consequence and the behavior is ready to happen, what's missing? Well, it has to be available. That consequence has to be available. And that's where the SD comes in. The SD is correlated with differential availability, while an MO is related to effectiveness. Just because something is going to be effective does not make it available. Just because something is available does not mean it's valued. And so it's important that if that motivation is there, there's got to be SDs signaling the consequence is available. You can see how these start to work together. Think about a commercial. You're watching a commercial for Taco Bell and they show the new nacho fries and you really want the nacho fries, but in your house, there are no nacho fries available. Not until you maybe get in your car and drive to Taco Bell or open up DoorDash and order Taco Bell are there stimuli signaling the availability. Very, very important to understand the difference between motivation and actual availability. Finally, conditioned motivating operations. I hesitate to even talk too much about these because in practice, it's rarely going to come up. And while you should be familiar with these, I would say you want to study this absolutely last because you don't want to spend a lot of time confusing yourself about what a motivating operation is because you're trying to figure out conditioned MOs. So try to think in terms of very simple ideas. A reflexive CMO. It signals the situation is getting better or worse. So a student sees a teacher start to pull out a stack of exams. That's going to increase the value of something and decrease the value of other things. Transitive. A stimulus establishes or abolishes the need for another stimulus. You walk into the sun, it increases the value of sunglasses. And then surrogate. A stimulus is paired with another MO and gains its properties. Think in terms of those three simple ideas for reflexive, transitive, and surrogate. Focus much more, and I mean a lot more, on what is a motivating operation, what is a discriminative stimuli, how do they relate, how are they going to fit into my interventions. And once we're fluent in that and everything else, then come back to your conditioned motivating operations. If you find yourself getting confused going through CMOs, just move on for now. We don't want to get confused because of the CMOs, which are a very, very small portion of what you need to know, and especially in terms of motivating operations and how you're going to think about them in practice. So that is G2, interventions based on MOs and SDs. Extremely important topic. It can be difficult to internalize, but you want to work hard at it because when you do internalize it, you'll be surprised at how easy it makes some of our other behavior questions. And you're going to start to notice how important MOs and SDs are in those behavior questions. As always, subscribe for all of our updates. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for study materials. Let us know when you pass. Work hard. Study hard. See you soon.